Hi, this is Gary with Gary Sprinkler Repair Service, and today I'm going to show you how to install a brass, what plumbers call a PRV or a pressure regulator valve, on an irrigation system to prevent high water pressure and fogging on your lawn irrigation sprinklers, as well as blowing your valves apart. Most valves are rated, generally speaking, if they're PVC, for about 80 psi intermittently, not continuously. So you can a lot of times check that pressure using a gauge on the bottom of the drip filter and turn the valve on, and you can see what the pressure is even with water going out. So today we're going to be helping someone out by installing a brass pressure regulator, as I like to call them, and again, plumbers call these PRVs, and that stands for pressure regulator valve. And anyway, this is a 1-inch, and it has threads on the outside or the inside. We don't use the outside ones, we use the inside threads. So you're going to need to install a male adapter on both sides of that. So you'll want to put no more than 2 wraps of Teflon tape on your male adapter. Teflon tape is literally simply the stuff that you can buy, this little white tape at Home Depot or Lowe's for about 25-30 cents a roll. And you put 2 wraps on going clockwise, and then from there you don't want to put too many wraps because it needs to thread in here. And then we're going to also use this stuff right here, and this is liquid Teflon, and we'll put some of that and coat the threads on these guys with that. We'll hand thread them in here to get them started, and then we'll go ahead and tighten them down with some channel locks and get them to where you can feel them stop. Once they stop, you're done. Don't keep cranking on it. And then from there, I'll show you the next step in the procedure. So anyway, hope you're having a good day and look forward to showing you how to do this. All right, the next step is to go ahead and put some liquid Teflon on the threads, and that's pretty easy to do after putting the 2 wraps of regular Teflon tape. Go ahead and put a nice even coating on here, and we're just going to go around and just kind of coat it all the way around, and that's all you got to do, just a nice, easy, even coat of it. Don't need to get too carried away, and this stuff is like gorilla snot, man. I mean, a little bit of this gets on you, and I swear you're wiping it everywhere. You know, threaded that in to get it started, and now I'm going to go ahead and just support it here on the tailgate of the truck, and I'm just going to go ahead and start tightening that up so we can get that threaded all the way. It doesn't have to go all the way in. Again, you're just going to keep tightening it until you feel it physically stop, and that's the key. So I'll keep going here, and I'll show you about how far these typically go in. Sometimes they go in a pretty good ways, and some are different. You might find that they go in and stop 1/8 of an inch before they, like this one probably will do. And then there's the stop. You see this one stops about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe the next one will stop a little further out, a little closer in. Just kind of depends a lot of times on how many wraps of Teflon you put on there. But if you just do 2 wraps, that'll work. Anytime you go PVC to brass or PVC to copper, you want to make sure you use that liquid Teflon. Even PVC to galvanize, you want to use that liquid Teflon, or you're almost guaranteed a leak. So always use a little bit of regular Teflon tape, that's the white wrapping tape, and then the liquid Teflon. If you don't, you're probably going to have a leak. Okay, didn't want to bore you with the details, so I went ahead and put the second one in. But if you look here, here was the first one. You can see the spacing here, about 1/8 of an inch. Here, a little bit more. But again, what you're going for is when you feel it stop. Okay, so a lot of this spacing sometimes depends on, you know, the plastic threads or the metal threads in here, who knows, or again how much Teflon you put on it. So don't go by this one's in further than that, just go by when they stop. And so you can see we have a flow direction here. So we want to come from the street direction. When we go from the street, we want to make sure that this is installed to where this points towards your sprinkler manifold. And we use typically what's called a 1-inch shorty telescoping slip fix to install into the back side of this. I'll show you how that's done here in a few minutes. So typically how this works is it telescopes out, and that's this end is like a coupling, so you can glue it on your pipe, and this end will glue into here. And if you were measuring, that would be where you'd measure to. And this is properly installed, this slip fix, when it's telescoped all the way out. If you make the mistake of telescoping it only that far, every time the water pressure comes on and off, or a valve comes on and off on your manifold, it's going to go like this. And eventually it's going to break that glue fitting loose either here or here where it's glued into this guy. So you want to make sure that when this is installed, before you go ahead and put it in, glue this onto your pipe. You're going to measure this guy, and then there's a line on this right here. This line where my finger's at is where I measure to on that side. So we go like this, lay it down in there, and I can see I'm going to cut it, my pipe down to the ground to where it's right here, so I can glue this on. And then when this is glued into place, I'm going to make another mark right here, and that's where we're going to cut the other pipe. And then I will go ahead and compress that in, glue it into place, glue that on, and then telescope this end back out and twist. You always give it about a quarter of a turn and hold it for a few minutes, maybe about a full minute, and that way you got yourself ready to go. So let's move forward with this. All right, this is where we're going to be installing the pressure regulator today. So you can put a gauge here on the outgoing side of the drip valve. And if you see here, they're supposed to be no more than about 60 psi. So this is sitting at about 103 psi. So it needs a pressure regulator because she's got problems that it's blowing valves apart. Okay, so here's my valve manifold. I showed you the water pressure with the gauge there. This is the shutoff for the irrigation. And you can see here's the water main, 1-inch water main. Got it all exposed. One of the critical things that I always tell people to make sure that they do, I don't know if you can tell here, is you want to see down here where the shovel goes quite a ways past the pipe. So you can see here, it goes a couple inches below that. So I can literally get my hand, you know, probably about that far below the pipe, all the way down. And the reason for that is once you cut this water main out, there's existing water that's going to be in the line, and a lot of times that starts flooding into your hole. So one of the things you want to make sure that you have on the ready is one of these guys. This is a hand siphon pump. You can see how it works. There's a suction end there, and then an outlet hose here, and it goes over to there, and you can just pump the water right out of the hole. That way you don't get a bunch of water and debris filling up your hole and getting into the water main, because this is the same water main as their house water main. So for you as a homeowner, this could be something you're looking to do on your own property. So let's say they don't have a pressure regulator in your garage, like the homes up here in Northern California, and you wanted to install one on your property out just this side of the water meter or the water main. So this is another way you could do that. It's exactly the same thing we're going to be doing here today. Now, so that I don't have to deal with all the water from these risers on these pipes down here, running down through the gate valve and coming backward through my pipe and making it fun for me while I'm trying to glue, I'm going to probably go ahead and shut that shutoff off so I don't have to deal with that constant water trickling down the pipe while I'm trying to glue this in. So that's pretty much where we're at. And again, you saw the water pressure gauge earlier. That was the reason that necessitated this to start with. All right, a few of the tools that you're going to need here today. One of the things that we used earlier on this job was a root cutter or a pair of pruning shears to trim some of the roots out of that trench so that we weren't dealing with a bunch of roots around the pipe that would cause future problems. But a couple things you're going to need here to make sure that this is reality for you. Unfortunately, this job will require some glue. We use Spears primer. It's an aqua blue. And then we use wet dry glue, PVC cement, and I'll show you how to use those here in a moment. Obviously we need our pressure regulator, our telescoping slip fix, and if you don't have a pair of ratchet cutters, these pretty much go like this, and then you ratchet them down to cut the pipe. Then you can use just a regular handsaw, and you can see even if you just have a hacksaw with the hacksaw blade, that'll work just fine. So, and then you do need the suction tool that I mentioned here earlier, and of course we use a trenching shovel like this just for making the trench, and I make sure I give myself plenty of room to work. And so next thing you want to do is go ahead and shut the water off to the property, whether that's at your water meter or in this case that's where we shut it off, so that you can get this thing installed. Once you do that, up here on the valves, I like to go ahead with the gate valve open, and I'll just open up one of the bleed screws on one of the valves and open it just to make sure no water sprays out, just to make sure that we've got the right water shut off for this property if there's two in the box or multiple ones that's sitting in the street. You don't want to cut that pipe and then find out you shut the wrong person's water off and your house water's still on. You're going to get plenty wet. So again, at this point I like to go ahead and shut this gate valve off righty-tighty Just needs to be snug, don't get carried away. And then I'm going to go ahead and measure in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and, I know that right now, just for, if I telescope this all the way out here, this is installed position. I can see here that I've got plenty of room with this installed, if you look, to do that with the, the confines of the pipe that I've got here. And this would be glued on to right here to this point, onto that pipe. And then this guy here, you can see where the seam is right here. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it glues on here when it's glued in, and there's the mark that you would make on your pipe down below. So if I was trying to do that, literally, you could go like this. And you can see your two marks. So I'm gonna mark this edge, and I'm gonna mark that edge on this main pipe. But to make things easier for me, so I'm not trying to balance these two, since I know it'll fit, again, you wanna make sure your arrow now is coming from the street direction, heading towards your manifold. Otherwise, it's installed backwards, and it won't work. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue this telescoping slip fix into place so I don't have to hold it, and then I'll show you how to cut it and where to cut it. All right, first is the primer. We're gonna go ahead and put some primer in there, drain out the excess, put some primer on the other end. Go ahead and set that down. Gonna go ahead and put some primer on this guy, and then on the coupling side on that guy. Now we're ready to go ahead and apply our glue. Go ahead and wipe off your dauber so you don't have too much glue slobbered all over the place. And again, critical move here is to make sure that you're paying attention that you're gluing this in on the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that in there, swab it all the way around to coat it. Go ahead and coat this guy all the way around. If you want, you can even look. Put that up. Take this and go ahead and shove it in, and then you can go ahead and turn it a good quarter turn and then wait. And then you can see, you always want to make sure that when you let go, that you pay attention that that doesn't start pulling back out of there. That's called pushback. And anyway, so that's now fully installed. So now if I wanted to make my marks down on the pipe, I can use my saw to kind of make two little marks here. So I got plenty of room here to make my marks. So I'm lining it up off of this guy right here. There's one mark. So make sure that I'm right on that guy. And that looks perfect. And then again, where this seam is, we're gonna go ahead and put a mark right where that seam's at. And that would be right about here. Now, just in case the pipe's brittle, you don't want to cut the pipe, so get this out of your way. You don't want to cut where your line is and then have the pipe shatter, because sometimes brittle pipe shatters. So I always cut in the middle and cut a section out, because pipe's always a lot easier to cut when it's, you can see it's pretty hard to cut. So there's one piece, and then I'll go ahead and cut another small piece out right here. Now, that way, if we see we got pipe that shatters, I can use the saw to cut this rather than my compression cutters, which would make it shatter and screw up where it needs to go. Normally, you'd have to use the suction tool to put in here and start sucking the water out. But as you can see, I dug it out far enough, and since this goes uphill, we're not getting any excess water. So one thing that helps a little bit is just carefully put a little bit of water on your blade, wiping down so you don't cut your finger. And I can go ahead and put it on my mark here. And see, now the pipe has the ability to bend with me. And of course it shattered. But the good news is it shattered beyond my cut. So I'm gonna come up here, and I'm not even gonna chance it on that one. I'm just gonna go ahead and use my saw on both of these, because this one I can salvage, because you can see I can saw it straight off. I'm not gonna chance that this one shatters up here, and then I'm kind of toast. I would have to end up putting a coupling, small piece of 1-inch pipe, and then do it. So for now, I'm gonna cut away. I'll come back once I got this all cut out. And got all the PVC shavings out of there that I could. Gonna try to get as much out of there as you possibly can. And next we're gonna take the primer and go ahead and clean up the pipe. I have a beveling tool. You can pick them up at Harbor Freight. It's like for beveling pipe. You just kind of put it over the end and spin it. It takes a little bevel and takes that edge off on the outside edge. You can use the pointy side for on the inside, and then you kind of get all that stuff out of there. So we're pretty much ready to rock and roll at this point. Just a little bit extra on that guy since I got some water out of it. These guys have already been primered, ready to go. So I like to put the outgoing side on first whenever possible. So here I can either do down there first or up here. Now it's time for the glue. Go ahead and swab the glue around. Glue all the way around here, all the way around your pipe. Then you can go ahead and set it down there. Go ahead and turn that about a half a turn until it locks into place. I like to clean the glue off with my finger. And the reason for that is so that if you look right here, cleaning that glue off with my finger, if this started to slide up the pipe right now, we'd see the glue smearing. And we don't see that, as you can tell. All right. So next we're going to put our other end on here, and I can put my swab in here, and see, luckily I have the ability, since it's a telescoping slip fix and it pivots, I can turn this so I can get glue all the way around. Then come over here, and we're going to put plenty of glue on the outgoing side that we're going to glue onto, and support that 90. Get this guy ready to go, and just go ahead and slide it on. Give it a little bit of a turn and line it up. And there you go. Last thing I like to do is go ahead and put a nice protective box over the top of that with a lid so that you can get to it whenever you like. And that's how you install a brass PRV, as plumbers call them, or a pressure regulator valve. That'll step, it's preset from the factory on the little metal tag there at about 55 to 60 psi. Okay, and here's the end result of putting in a pressure regulator. We went from 103 psi to a more respectable 40 psi, and that's with the actual water running. So you can see the valve, this is an older valve that she has here that I've got turned on manually. So with the bleed screw open, it leaks water down the valve. So that's irrelevant to what we're doing. But the point is, this is what happens when you install a pressure regulator. Now these valves are only under 40 psi, and that's literally with the water running. So with the water off, they're probably sitting right around 55 psi, somewhere in that neighborhood, right exactly where they should be. So, project solved. So if you liked our video today, I'd like to encourage you to make sure you give us a like, share, or subscribe. And if you subscribe, make sure you tap the notifications button. That way you'll have an idea of whenever we post a new video. We're going to be, when we hit 100 subscribers or on January 1st, whichever comes first, we're going to be giving away 10 Rainbird 1800 lawn sprinklers to one lucky subscriber. So make sure you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully this helped you out. And if you have any questions or comments, think something that we could maybe do better in the future, feel free to leave a comment.